Imagine living in a metal chamber the size of a small camper van with 5 other men for 28 days straight. You can't leave, your voice sounds like Donald Duck, and the pressure inside is the same as being 150 meters under the sea, because in a way you are. Hello, and welcome to What Do You Actually Do? The podcast where we explore the fascinating and often misunderstood jobs people have, and we learn English through real conversation. I'm your host, Alex, and today we're going deep, literally the deepest we've ever gone on this show. Our guest is Liam, who has spent the last 8 years working as a commercial saturation diver in the North Sea off the coast of Scotland. Liam, thanks so much for joining us.
Hey Alex, cheers for having me. Good to be here.
So Liam, welcome to What Do You Actually Do? Let's start with the basics. When you tell someone at a party that you're a deep sea diver, what's the first thing they say?
Most people immediately ask, "Oh, are you in the Navy?" Or, "Do you dive with sharks?" And I have to explain, no, I'm a commercial diver. I work on oil and gas infrastructure on the seabed. Pipelines, platforms, wellheads. It's industrial work, just underwater.
So, no sharks?
Occasionally, a curious seal will come and have a look at you. That's about as exciting as it gets. The North Sea is cold, grey, and full of mud. Not exactly the Great Barrier Reef.
So, what does the job actually involve?
So most of what I do is inspection, maintenance, and repair on underwater oil and gas equipment. That might mean welding a piece of pipe that has cracked, replacing a valve, cleaning marine growth off a structure, or just inspecting something and filming it for the engineer's topside. The equipment on the seabed was put there decades ago, and it needs people like me to keep it running.
And why do they need humans? Why can't robots do it?
They use robots, we call them ROVs, remotely operated vehicles, for a lot of the inspection work. But for anything that needs real dexterity, using a wrench, cutting a bolt, handling a delicate piece of equipment, you need a human pair of hands. At least for now.
Right. And what does the career ladder look like in commercial diving?
There's a clear progression. You start as an air diver, which means you're diving on normal air, to shallower depths, usually under 50 meters. From there you move up to mixed gas diving, where you breathe a blend of helium and oxygen to go deeper. And at the top of the tree is saturation diving, or SAT, which is what I do. That's where you can reach the deepest depths and stay down the longest. Above that, you've got roles like dive supervisor, who runs the dive from topside, and life support technician, who manages the chambers. Some guys eventually become offshore managers, but most SAT divers just dive until their bodies tell them to stop.
So SAT diving is the top of the pyramid.
It's the elite end of the industry, yeah, and it pays accordingly.
So how did you end up doing this? Childhood dream?
Far from it. I grew up in a small town in Scotland and I was working as a mechanic, but I always loved the sea. A friend of the family was an old diver, and he told me about commercial diving one Christmas. Said the pay was great, but you had to earn it. I started saving, and when I'd put enough aside, I booked myself into a commercial dive school. That was the best decision of my life.
And what was the training like? Because I imagine you don't just jump in a chamber on day one.
No. You have to earn your way down. First, you do what's called HSE Part One. It's a 3-month course where you learn to dive on air, using what's called surface supply. You're connected to the surface by an umbilical, a big bundle of hoses that gives you air, hot water, power, and communications.
An umbilical, like a baby.
Exactly like that. It is your lifeline. If it gets cut or fouled, you have a problem. So a huge part of training is managing your umbilical, never letting it tangle on structures, always knowing where it is behind you. You do that for 3 months. Learning to work underwater, using tools, doing basic welding, tying knots with thick gloves on in zero visibility.
Zero visibility?
A lot of what we do You can't see your own hand in front of your face. Stirred up mud, dirty water. So you learn to work by feel. After HSE Part 1, you move on to Part 2, where you get into mixed gas diving. And then if you want to go all the way, you do your saturation ticket. That's the big one.
Tell me about that. What happens in SAT training?
So, SAT training is where they lock you in a pressure chamber on dry land, pressurize you to the equivalent of 100 meters of seawater, and leave you there for a few days to see how you cope. They call it a shakedown.
On dry land?
On dry land. It's called a hyperbaric chamber. You're inside it at depth, breathing helium. You eat in there, sleep in there, go to the toilet in there. It's to check two things. Can your body handle being under pressure for long periods? And can you handle being stuck in a very small space with strangers? Some people freak out. If you're claustrophobic and you didn't know it, you find out fast.
I can imagine. So walk me through a typical rotation in SAT. What does that look like?
So a standard saturation job runs about 28 days. You fly out to a dive support vessel, a big ship with diving systems built in. When it's time to go in, you climb into the living chamber with your team, usually 5 or 6 divers, and they start pressurizing you. It takes a few hours to bring you down to working depth. Then you're at pressure for the whole job.
And what are the living conditions like?
Cramped. The chamber is maybe the size of a small caravan. You've got bunks stacked 3 high, a tiny table, a toilet behind a curtain. Food is sent in through an airlock. It comes in hot when they load it, but by the time you get it, it's lukewarm because the air is compressed and takes heat out of everything. Hot coffee basically doesn't exist. Nothing tastes right under pressure.
And the voice thing, is that real?
Yes, very real. You're breathing helium, which makes your voice sound like a cartoon character. It's so high-pitched you can barely understand each other. There's a machine called a helium voice unscrambler that the topside team uses to lower the pitch so they can understand us on the radio. But inside the chamber, we just sound ridiculous. First day of SAT, you can't stop laughing at each other.
So what's a workday like when you're in SAT?
You work 6-hour shifts. 3 of us go into the diving bell, which is a small round chamber that gets lowered down to the job site. Once the bell is at depth, 2 of us lock out. We open the bottom hatch and swim out into the water, while the third stays in the bell as our bellman tending our umbilicals. We work for about 6 hours on the seabed. Then we come back into the bell, get winched up to the vessel, and transfer back into the main chamber. 6 hours on, 12 hours off, for 28 days.
And you're in 4-degree water for 6 hours at a time?
That's where the hot water suit comes in. It's this special suit with tubes running through it, and hot water is pumped down from the surface through the umbilical into the suit. It keeps you alive. Without it, you'd be hypothermic in about 10 minutes. If that hot water fails, you have maybe 5 minutes to get back to the bell before your body starts shutting down. We call it a hot water emergency. Scary thing when it happens.
So that one hose is literally keeping you warm enough to survive.
Yeah. And when it cuts out, which happens, you feel the cold hit you like a wave. Your hands go numb instantly. You can't grip your tools. You stop, you tell topside, and you head for the bell. That's it.
Let's talk about the hardest part of the job. What really gets to you?
Physically, it's the cold and the pressure on your body. After 28 days at depth, you feel heavy, slow, your joints ache. And at the end of the job, you can't just fly home, you have to decompress. That takes about 4 days, where they slowly lower the pressure in the chamber, bringing you back to surface pressure a tiny bit at a time. If they do it too fast, you get decompression sickness. We call it the bends, and that can kill you.
4 days of just sitting there waiting?
4 days. You're so close to home, but you can't leave. You watch films, play cards, read, sleep. A lot of guys find the last few days of decompression harder than the whole rest of the job.
And the mental side?
The isolation. You don't see the sun for a month. You don't feel fresh air. You don't see your family. Video calls through the chamber are patchy because of the voice problem. Last year, I missed my son's second birthday. My wife saved the cake and we celebrated when I got back, but I still remember sitting in the chamber that night thinking, my boy is blowing out candles and I'm in a tin can in the North Sea.
That's really hard. How do you get through that?
The money matters. It's genuinely life-changing. But more than that, the team in there with you becomes everything. Those 5 other guys, you eat with them, sleep 3 feet away from them. You trust them with your life every single day. By the end of a SAT, they feel like brothers. That bond is what gets you through.
What's the best or most surprising thing about the job?
Honestly, it's the view from the bell. When you first drop down and the bell windows pass through the layers of the ocean, the light changes from blue to grey to black, and then you reach the seabed and switch the lights on, and suddenly there's this whole alien world. Fish you've never seen, sea life glowing in the dark, old equipment covered in barnacles. People pay thousands of pounds for a dive holiday and never see what I see on a Tuesday morning at work.
That's a beautiful image. Now, do you have a good story for us? Something funny or memorable?
Oh, I've got a funny one. So on my first ever SAT, I'd been in the chamber about 5 days, and my wife had set up a video call with her son, who was about 18 months old. I wave at him on the screen, and he just stares at me. I say, "Hi buddy, it's Daddy," in my full helium voice, like a chipmunk. He bursts into tears, screams the house down. He was convinced a cartoon character had kidnapped his dad.
No.
It took my wife 20 minutes to calm him down. After that, we had to do calls without video, where I'd just breathe through my nose and whisper so I sounded more normal. Now, every time someone on the team goes into S8, we warn them, do not video call your toddler.
That is amazing. And a more serious moment?
Yeah, a couple of years ago, I was out on a job at about 140 metres. I was welding a piece of pipe and my umbilical got fouled on a piece of structure behind me. I didn't notice because the current was pushing me forward, so there was no tension. When I turned to swim back to the bell, I was stuck, tangled, in cold black water at 140 metres.
What did you do?
I did what the training told me to do. I stopped moving. I told topside. I let my bellman come out and trace the umbilical back to find the fouling. He untangled me in about 4 minutes, though it felt like an hour. Neither of us panicked. That was the moment I understood why we drill those scenarios over and over. When it happens for real, your brain wants to scream, but your hands already know what to do.
A quiet, professional moment that probably saved your life.
It did, and I bought that bellman a very expensive beer when we got topside.
Finally, Liam, if someone is listening thinking, maybe I could do this, what would you tell them?
3 things. First, be honest with yourself about small spaces and long separations from home. You can be the strongest swimmer in the world, but if you can't handle 28 days in a box with 5 other men, SAT is not for you. There's no shame in that. A lot of great divers stay on air and mixed gas their whole careers. Second, do not cut corners on your training. Get the proper commercial dive qualifications, HSE or IMCA tickets, depending on where you are, from a recognised school. In this industry, cheap training kills people. Spend the money. And third, get your fitness right before you even apply. Commercial diving is physically brutal. I train in the gym 6 days a week when I'm at home. Cardio, strength, flexibility. The fit divers come home at 40 with their bodies intact. The ones who don't look after themselves, they don't.
That's really solid advice. Liam, this has been fascinating. Thank you so much for sharing your world with us.
Pleasure, Alex. Really enjoyed it.
That was Liam, a commercial saturation diver working in the North Sea. Now, for our English learning listeners, let's go over some useful vocabulary from our conversation today. First, saturation. In diving, saturation means your body has absorbed all the gas it can hold at a certain pressure. Once you're saturated, you can stay at depth for weeks without needing to decompress every day. That's why Liam stays down for a whole month at a time. Second is umbilical. An umbilical is a bundle of hoses and cables that connect the diver to the surface, supplying gas, hot water, power, and communications. Without it, the diver cannot survive underwater. Third is decompression. This is the slow process of reducing the pressure on your body after a deep dive. If you come up too quickly, you can get sick. Decompression can take hours, or in Liam's case, days. Fourth, topside. Topside simply means on the surface, on the ship above the divers. When Liam talks to topside, he's talking to the team on the vessel. And finally, fouled. If something is fouled, it means it's caught or tangled on something else. Liam's umbilical was fouled on a piece of underwater structure, which meant he couldn't move. And that's it for today's episode of What Do You Actually Do? A huge thank you to our guest, Liam. I hope you found his story as fascinating as I did. Join us next time when we go from the cold, dark depths of the North Sea to a very different kind of quiet. We're heading to Boston in the United States to talk to Hannah, a funeral director. It's a job most of us know almost nothing about, and one that takes a very particular kind of person. Until then, take care.